Good morning, Westeros!
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
And I'm Kyle.
We're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your Morning Throners. We got a jam-packed night full of new names, people, and interesting things to go. We're talking Ned, actually Eddard, and let's roll. And can we start with where are you getting Ned from Eddard? A little, like, what the fuck's going on
I was
there?
expecting them to explain that later on.
Like,
so apparently they don't.
I think, isn't Ned a nickname for Edward?
No
I don't know.
shot.
Maybe.
I was about to
Never
ask
heard
what it's
that.
a nickname for
In
now.
real world?
Now
If I
it
know
is.
somebody-
I think it is.
Is that it? Just Edward is Ned?
That's something to think about. But welcome back, everybody. How does everybody feel about getting into this chapter?
Great.
They're starting to just throw piles and piles of characters at us.
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. Kyle, how about you?
It was pretty good. I mean, you learned some more about the relationships here, it seems. A lot of
Yeah, for
subtleties going on in this one. So it says Ned is an English given name and a variant of Ed, sometimes short for Benedict, Edward, Edmund, Edgar, and Edwin.
Told you
Benedict.
guys.
That's Wikipedia. So
I'm naming my kid Benedict. Bringing that name back.
Benedict Adolf Glowacki.
So one thing I'm gonna say real quick is when I take like some pretty in detailed notes on all these as we go through. As I was taking notes, I was getting really confused on like how long it takes to get like from place to place. So I looked up a timeline online. The prologue happens first in the book, then Dany, like chronologically, and then the first Bran chapter isn't till 9 months after the prologue. So we were talking about how long it took Jared to get from like where he was north of the wall to where he was. 9 months.
Oh, shit.
Again, I'm not exactly sure how they're getting these, and they said not everything is like really accurate, but they have like to the month and day for all these. So those two take place on the third month, first day, and this chapter and the John chapter that's next take place a month and a half afterwards. And in the Catelyn chapter, that she says that she knows that the king's already on the way. So about maybe 2 months to get the whole way to the capital. Does that make sense?
Probably.
Well, yeah, that's also because Robert's battalion moves really slow.
And it's,
Yeah.
it's huge.
But this, I guess, this is more of a question for Jeff and Glow.
Wendy's
We can
fat.
talk about it later. But we know, I think
Takes
there's
more.
a point when they say it takes two weeks by horseback to get from the wall to Winterfell.
if you take
So that would be four
if you
times
take
as
a
long.
fast horse, right? Doesn't say.
Yeah. So that would be like 4 times as long, assuming that Robert was moving the pace of like people on horseback.
Isn't
Right.
Which
I
seems
think
like
2
about,
months
I don't
would
know.
be
Nelson,
fair.
are one of your maps to scale? Do they have a scale on it? You can measure
They're
how
all
far
to
it is.
scale, but I mean, it looks like it's about a quarter of the, or 1/8 of the distance. But that's what I was thinking is the speed they're moving. Doesn't matter. I just wanted to point that out before the rest come in. Also, the third Dany chapter. We haven't even got to the second Dany chapter. The third Dany chapter takes place before this chronologically.
Nuh-uh, really?
Yeah.
Did you look that up?
Yeah,
Or
he
you
said he
just-
looked up the
Yeah,
timeline.
yeah. I looked
Okay.
up a
Yeah.
thing that connected stuff based on like moons and like
Yeah,
half
that's
moon and
wild.
shit in certain chapters.
Because me and Nelson, we talk about this pretty much every time we read. Is I have a big problem with some of the timetables. I think it was more when we
Yeah.
watched the show, but and maybe like later on in the book. But there's just
yeah,
like,
in book 5, you had a lot of complaints about time stuff. That's
Yeah.
why I looked this up so that we would just kind of. There's nothing really matters right now. It doesn't matter like
yeah.
locationally, but yeah, just we would have that.
Yeah.
All right. So how's this chapter start?
The king shows up.
Robert Baratheon.
Yeah,
Robert
I like
Baratheon and crew.
So Robert Baratheon is like me. Like looks like me basically.
No.
no way, dude. He's so
Looks
much
nothing
fatter.
like you. So much fatter, so much more hair and beard.
No,
Yeah,
no.
like
Him in his prime. No, him in his prime. I'll read the
No.
description of
No.
what Ned says.
It's further from.
I'll
the-
read
Alright.
the description of what
I
Ned
was-
says in
You
his
look
prime.
closer to him now.
Yeah, I was
than
gonna
you
say I
do
was
in his
trying that
prime.
one. I would say I
I'm
saw
like
some
in the
pictures of
middle. I'm
Nelson
like
where
in the
he's
middle.
pretty-
I'm like a good picture of what Robert was in between the
That
two.
dude is a behemoth picture. I mean,
Yeah.
Go
right,
ahead
he got
and
the
pump
cape
up
on.
yourself.
I don't think you
Alright.
look like a Yeti, dude.
Just let me read the quote, so my joke makes sense.
Okay.
15 years passed when they had ridden forth to win a throne. The Lord of Storm's End had been clean-shaven, clear-eyed, and muscled like a maiden's fantasy. 6.5 feet tall, he towered over lesser men. And when he donned his armor and his great antlered helm of his house, he became a veritable giant. He had a giant strength, too. His weapon of choice, a spiked iron warhammer that Ned could scarcely lift. In those days, the smell of leather and blood had clung to him like perfume. Now it was perfume that clung to him like perfume. And he had a girth to match his height. So yeah, except for that last part, that's basically me to a T. I even smell like blood and leather.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to tell yourself. But it
Maybe
is
piss and shit. I don't know about
crazy.
blood and leather. Blood and leather.
It's crazy the difference. Like, you went from being like the man of the Seven Kingdoms, like probably like everyone pissed down their leg when you walked up, and now, like, I'm sure he's still like a badass dude, but he's just like so fat, it's like comical. Like, he's probably one of the guys where you can say like, all right, you can say whatever you want because you know if it came down to a foot race, he'd never catch you because he's just so fat.
Yeah. And we can talk about it now because, again, anybody who's seen this has seen the show. If you haven't seen the show, get out, because although Kyle hasn't read, he knows a lot of the spoilers, so we're going to be touching on some of that stuff. In the next chapter, John chapter, which we already read, we read 2 at a time. When John sees Ned come down, or Robert come down the hall, he's just thinking, like, this guy is not what I pictured.
Yeah.
Like,
What a fat
This is
piece
not
of
what
shit.
a king should be.
yeah.
Especially when you hear the stories and probably like everyone talks it up, and it's like, what? This is it?
Well, yeah,
This
I mean,
is this is the mighty king that defeated Rhaegal on the Trident and all that stuff. But
yeah, he just hears all like the good stories from Ned, none of like the getting fat.
yeah, and Ned definitely talks up his boy too.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Like I've tried to do in every bar with Nelson. But it's just
Yeah, right.
worthless
You
fight.
just speak as loudly as you can about how bad I am at darts or shuffleboard as I'm whooping you.
That's
Sometimes
right.
you make me cry.
You suck at shuffleboard, Nelson.
You cried because you lost,
He's-
but that's beside the point. Moving on. So everyone comes up. Some other names that we hear are Cersei, all the Lannisters pretty much. So Cersei.
Yeah, so hold on. I want to see, Kyle, any of these names, I'll read off the people that Ned points out by name. And does any of them, you don't know any idea who these people are based on your prior knowledge? So Robert Baratheon, do you know who that is from what? Like,
I've seen some of the memes. Bobby B. He's big
Bobby
fat
B.
king. Yeah, I know that much.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the man. He's
I
basically
don't
just like
know
the
much
frat
about him,
boy.
though. Yeah,
He's like the frat boy Westeros.
I've gotten that from here.
Yeah,
this
I don't
chapter.
think you would have
He's
got
the
along with
Chad.
him, but I'm a fan.
Fat loser.
Yeah. Now, washed up.
He was like a really good
Glory-
high school athlete.
Yeah, his
and
high
then
school.
He went to college and
yeah,
got fat.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. A few too many natties on the weekend. Jamie Lannister, you probably know who that is.
In passing, yeah.
Tyrion Lannister,
I mean, obviously, I think everybody knows Tyrion.
Dinklage,
Yeah.
Sandor Clegane.
Sander, I've definitely heard his name. I don't know much. I couldn't tell you anything about him.
Okay, and Joffrey Baratheon.
Joffrey, he's the little blonde kid, right?
Yeah.
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 I know enough about him
Little
being a
blonde
bitch.
bitch.
Yeah, I knew that. Don't worry. Everybody hated him.
Yeah, so we haven't got anything yet to dislike him, but it won't be long. So
Yeah.
okay, and then we talk about Cersei Lannister.
Yeah, I know. So obviously it was after all this, but I saw the last episode, her getting killed, the bells, all that shit. But
Marcella, her daughter, you probably don't know anything about her. She's not really even in
No.
the show much.
She
Catelyn
stupid
Stark,
bitch.
we talked about her before. Robb Stark, Bran, Rickon, Sansa, Arya.
Theon, or wasn't he there too?
Theon Greyjoy, yeah, they talk about him a little bit, and we talked
He was
about
in
this.
the first one or something.
Yeah,
right?
we
Yeah.
talked about it
In
when
the
he came
Bran
up too.
chapter.
It's the next thing they say because Ned says the last time he saw Robert was 9 years ago. So Robert won the throne 15 years ago from some previous empire, and 9 years ago, so 6 years after he got the throne, there was a different rebellion from the Greyjoy Islands. Ned
Which
helped
is
him.
Theon's family.
Yeah, Theon's
Fucked
family.
him
So
up.
Okay.
Ned helped him smash that, and then as like, basically Theon's a hostage. They call it a ward to make.
How
it
was I
be-
supposed to know that?
They
Which
said
one?
it. They said it in this chapter.
Yeah,
Did
it's
they?
something you would definitely gloss over.
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's like a
something
half a
real quick.
paragraph thing.
Because
Yeah.
like
Maybe
you
one
hear
sentence.
Theon, you probably forget Theon's last name is Greyjoy, and you're like, wait, what are they doing, and where do they live? It's all a lot of info that you gloss over.
You'll find out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's the
there's, like,
second
think about-
paragraph. Yeah, second paragraph on the second page.
Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ned had last seen the king 9 years before during Balon Greyjoy's rebellion, when the Stag and Direwolf had joined to end the pretensions of the self-proclaimed King of the Iron Islands. Since that night, they stood side by side in Greyjoy's fallen stronghold, where Robert had accepted the rebel lord's surrender and Ned had taken his son Theon as a hostage and ward. The king had gained at least 8 stone. And then goes more to describe Robert, how he's got a beard. That's
How
like
much is a
black, thick
stone?
and black. So I looked this up.
25
8
pounds?
stone is 112 pounds.
What?
8 stone is 112. So he's gained 112.
I thought you said each stone, not
No,
8.
no, no.
I'm
Yeah, I
like,
thought
oh
he
my
said
god.
each too.
I didn't look up one.
Yeah.
I just when I read that I googled 8 stone.
He
and I
weighs
think it was
half a ton.
He gained 800 pounds.
I mean, but he had to be
Give or
like
take.
probably like
He's
close to
6'7",
200.
right? This one?
He
Yeah.
was 6'5", so even when Ned knew him as like
6'7",
a
I
muscle,
thought this.
as a he said at least 6.5 feet tall. Yeah,
I
Okay.
mean,
so,
that's
like, my height.
absolutely huge.
Yeah, and muscled like a maiden's fantasy. So he's probably weighing like 240 before. He's like 350 now.
Yeah, he's easily 350.
Yeah.
That's a big
Huge.
old boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
that's where we learn about Theon. And we talked about like what's like the difference between like a ward. Theon's basically a squire for Ned, even though he's a hostage. It's like way more seems like a way more prestigious role than it makes it out in this paragraph.
And they do give him, we'll learn, it's not a spoiler, like he's still like honorable. You know what I mean? He's still
Yeah, I mean,
high
he's hanging out with
family and
Ned all the
everything like that.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, so then like I said earlier, we got Greyjoy's 9 years, 10 years. So that was the last time 9 years ago was the last time that these two have seen each other. So then all the kids come out, and they rode in on this wheelhouse. Do you guys remember the description
Oh my
of this
God.
It's
wheelhouse?
huge. It's like
Two-story.
double decker, right?
Didn't fit through the
True story.
door.
That's unbelievable.
They literally couldn't even get through the door of the castle. Not like the
Yeah.
door of the house, the door of the castle. It said it was 2 stories and it had to be pulled by 40 draft horses.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Just imagine how pissed Cersei is outside of the castle gates knowing she has to walk the rest of the way. Which I'm sure wasn't too far, but still.
Well,
She's
also,
"Are
like,
you-
I
you
when I was
peasants
listening
are making me walk.
when I listened to the like director's commentary of this, George R. R. Martin was in it or something, or George R. R. Martin was talking about it, and they're like, "What's the one thing that you wish you could have got in season 1 that like got cut from the books?" And he's like, "The huge wheelhouse that comes into Winterfell." And he's like, "But obviously you couldn't do it." He said that'd be like more than half the season budget on its own.
Can you imagine just running around a house of, like, it's basically a house on wheels. You're in
Yeah.
a trailer home, but like not a trailer home.
Yeah, it's basically like an RV.
It's like 3 RVs on top of each other.
Yeah,
That's
with
crazy.
40 horses pulling it.
Yeah.
Holy
The
shit.
1%ers are rolling up to Winterfell.
Probably
No
smells
doubt
like
about that.
Yeah.
The 1%ers.
So all the kids meet each other, and as soon as that's done, Robert is like, "Take me down to the crypts. I want to pay my respects." So before we get into like the rest of this, Kyle, give me what you got out of basically the rest of this chapter. Like,
What do you mean, like the whole way to the end?
yeah, I mean, basically
was-
the rest of the chapter is all focused around like one thing.
Well, Cersei's a bitch. She's not pumped to be there. So here's something else. So Targaryens are in here as well, right?
Yeah, they talk about it one time.
So are they the usurpers then? That's me asking a question here.
No, Baratheon is the usurper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, that's what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying,
that's
yep.
like the tide. Okay, that was what I thought happened.
Yeah, I think when you're coming by the end of this chapter, that's what you're supposed to get, is that the throne that Robert won
Yeah.
15 years ago is from the Targaryens. He's the one who
Yeah.
took over their rule. And that's
Yeah.
why we got Dany across the sea now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but Robert wants to go down to the crypt sort of way.
Yeah, because he's mad that he couldn't marry Stark's sister, right?
Yep.
Ned's sister,
Yes, Lyanna.
because she died of a fever, right? That's what it said here.
Yeah,
at
it
least.
says that she died as a fever as Ned was holding her hands. But as soon as they say that, Robert gets like furious. Right? I think I even pointed this out. We can get to it later. We can circle back.
Yeah.
But Robert gets yeah, I have the quote right here. He could hear her still. This is when Ned is talking about when Lyanna died. He could hear her still at times. "Promise me," she had cried in her room that smelled of blood and roses. "Promise me, Ned." The fever had taken her strength and her voice, and her voice had been faint as a whisper. But when he gave her his word, the fear had gone out of his sister's eyes. Ned remembered the way she had smiled then, how tightly her fingers had clutched his as she gave up her hold on life, the rose petals spilling from her palm, dead and black. After that, he remembered nothing, They had found him still holding her body, silent with grief. The little Cranigmen, Hal and Reed, had taken her hand from his. Ned could recall none of it. I bring her flowers when I can, he said. Lyanna was fond of flowers. But then Robert immediately says that he
vowed to kill Rhaegar for what he did to her.
Exactly.
Yeah, so did he poison her or something?
Yeah, so we don't know.
Yeah. And he said only once. So he's the one that killed what's Daenerys, and I forget the other dude's name now already. This is how bad this is gonna go.
Viserys, yeah.
Viserys, yeah. Like he killed their brother Rhaegar then, right?
Yes, he killed the brother Rhaegar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why Nelson's gonna be so great for you, Kyle, because he
Yeah,
I know
studied
already.
these family
I know.
trees
Well, that
and-
was actually kind of part of what
Yeah.
I was hoping to get out of this was not have to not having to do all that flipping back shit.
It's impossible, and even like the smallest names, and you'll see it happen over and over again. Like
There's so
you're
many.
gonna easily forget about them, and they're gonna be important later on, and you're just gonna be like, wait, who the fuck was that? And the only reason you'll ever like want to say to yourself, who the fuck is that, is
Nelson.
because Nelson's gonna be like, oh, well, do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, do you remember
and
from
then-
this show?
and
Well,
then
it's going to
he'll
be
tell
easier
you.
now because the thing I'm taking notes with, I can link the pages together. So anytime there's a mention, so like in that quote I
Yeah.
just had, I have Hal and Reed. I can click on that; it'll take me to his page. Right
Yeah.
now, there's nothing there that appears in Eddard 1. That's the only thing I have on his page. But as it fills up, anytime that
Yeah.
somebody's mentioned, I'll be able to see any other time they were mentioned.
Yeah, but
and
it's
all that
still
stuff.
like we don't have that, so that's
Well,
why
yeah,
we
but
need you.
I'll be able to, tie
That's
tie
why
it
we
together.
need you.
I was cracking
Yeah,
up.
That's about the only reason we
you're
need
our-
you and to edit the podcast itself.
The
Yeah, and
archivist,
editing it.
the family archivist, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, then I had the quote about like Robert is not, even though like you said, Lyanna died of a fever. Robert is not happy about this dude Rhaegar. And there's another quote right after: "The king touched her cheek, and this is the stone statue.
Mm.
His fingers brushing against the rough stone as gently as if it were living flesh. I vowed to kill Rhaegar for what he did to her." "You did," Ned reminded him. "Only once," Robert said bitterly. They had come together at the ford of the Trident, while the battle rushed around them. Robert in his warhammer and his great antlered helm, the Targaryen prince armored all in black. On his breastplate was the three-headed dragon of his house, wrought all in rubies that flashed like fire in the sunlight. The waters of the Trident ran red around their hooves of the destriers as they circled and clashed, again and again, until the last crushing blow from Robert's hammer stove in the dragon and the chest beneath it. When Ned had finally come to the scene, Rhaegar lay dead in the stream, while men of both armies scrambled in the swirling waters for rubies knocked free of his armor. "In my dreams, I kill him every night," Robert admitted. "1,000 deaths will still be less than he deserves."
I think there's two things we need to point out about Robert. One is like how Ned says, like I loved Lyanna, but only Rob loved her more than me. Like how deeply in love he was with her. And two, he just like wants to kill people. Like he is still a fighter at heart, even though
Yeah,
he
he
might
wants-
be out of shape as shit. Like he wants to kill people for sure.
He wish he was still at war,
He's just that dude telling war stories all the time. He's just trying to relive
living
it.
in the past.
Yeah,
He is Nelson.
yeah, like me, basically.
But you can still see that the death of Lyanna is haunting him for sure. Like that's a major. What was it in a character arc for him for sure.
Yeah.
So.
So we get a few other things about the people in the crypts. So basically, Ned takes him down to the crypts, and it's just like a wide open, like tunnel, in the dark. There's no lights, and there's statues of all the Stark lords, and before them, Stark kings. Because as they're going down, they're talking about something, and Ned thinks about how before. A long time ago, like when the wall was erected or whatever, the North had been 6 independent, had been its own country ruled by its own king that bowed to no man. But he doesn't really say why that ended, but those days are done. And the other thing we get when they're going down the stairs is Robert mentions that the North is as big as the other 6 kingdoms combined. So they always say like the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. The North, like just land area wise. Is
It's
huge.
gigantic.
It's massive. Yeah.
It's like Canada.
Yeah.
Just massive, and there's nobody there.
Sorry for our Canadian listeners. We do.
Maybe it's more like Russia. I don't think.
You
anybody
offended-
in Russia
Maybe
is
closer to Russia, but
You have offended one of them. That's all.
yeah. Russians. I'm not scared of them. They're across the ocean.
unless you have a face app, I'd be scared.
Yeah. So, but basically in the crypts, we just gotta have the stone thrones and then like statues of the lords with direwolves at their feet and iron longswords across their laps to keep the
Yes.
vengeful spirits in their crypts.
Well, and like there were other people down there too, right? They weren't all lords and kings.
So
At first, they were all
Yeah,
Okay.
all
Ned
kings.
says that it's
Okay.
when they're going down and he's describing it, he says that's all it is. But when they get to the end, yeah, you're right. There's Lyanna down there who obviously
Yeah.
wasn't a lord. And then
And there were somebody's kids or something too, right?
and Brandon Stark.
Yeah, but he would have been a lord, so I figure.
Yeah, and we don't know at this point. We don't know when his father died, so we don't know because we find out in
That's
this
not
in
true.
this that we do. By this time in the book, we don't know when his dad
Oh.
died. So we
Fuck,
find out that
Don't
his
spoil
brother.
it.
We find out that his brother died by strangling by the order of the Mad King.
And there's another line right
And
after
that
that.
his father, was made to watch him.
So
right?
we know
made to
when
watch him die.
we know. at
So
least
probably
he
his father
before-
died after.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's come on. What are you talking about?
Most
So I guess
likely.
you're right. Yeah. So he was at the time he wasn't a lord. So then there you go. There's his brother, who was also buried down there. Who's not a lord. So, and then we have his dad who is there as well. So he's dead by now.
Sometime in between those two things.
Yeah, between his brother and now.
Between his birth and his death,
Yeah.
he was alive.
And we also find out that Brandon, and maybe we found out this in the Cat chapter, that Brandon was supposed to marry Cat. Did she think about that in the first Cat chapter? But they say it here that that Brandon died just a few days before he was supposed to be married
brought
Cat.
it up that she was supposed to, like, she brought it up. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive.
Kyle, does that ring a bell?
No, but
All right, fuck.
I
myself.
could have skipped it.
I mean, it does. I don't know. It doesn't
We
matter if
would've
it's in the
talked
Cat
about
Not
chapter
skipped
because
it.
it's here.
I read it. I mean, I read the whole thing, but I don't
Yeah,
remember.
just like not seeing it. Again,
Yeah.
I think it was just a few words. It was like he was strangled by King Ares a few days before he was supposed to marry Catelyn of Catelyn Tully of Riverrun, who we know is
Yeah.
Ned's wife.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I forgot about that though. I should have realized that.
And Lyanna, the only thing we get here is Lyanna was 16 when she died. So that makes me think like Robert is like so crazy in love with her. He's at least say he's the same age as Lyanna when she dies, and that's the same time he wins his throne. He's at least 31 now, and he's still like this worked up about a girl from when he was 16.
Yeah, man, he loves her.
I mean, how much
She's
do you
dead.
think he even knew her?
He knew her well. I mean, he probably didn't know her well because
She was from Winterfell. Like, yeah, we don't
right,
really
and
know
he
anything.
he was being a ward. We
Yeah,
know
with-
that, right? I'm not,
Yeah, we know that
he's
Robert
kind of a
and
weirdo
him
for
were
being that
wards
much
together.
in love with her.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe she was just like a complete smoke show.
I think
and
it's just one of those things like he got it like some
Nelson-
idea in his head.
He sounded more and more
Yeah.
like Nelson.
He might have
being
just
creeping
yeah,
on one
you're
chick.
Right. Yeah. He was
Exactly.
just so in love, like by the look of her, that he
Yeah.
just told her himself that she was perfect and whatnot. And I mean, but think about this: like, you're betrothed, she's hot. We're assuming she's hot. You're
They
happy
had to hang out a
shit.
couple times.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it worked out that he probably worked it up all those times, just like jerking off in the Erie. He was really excited about it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like the thing is, at that point, I bet you he hadn't even. I don't know. I mean, who knows when they met the first time? But I feel like Ned and him warded when they were young, because they say that Jon was like a second father to him,
Yeah,
which kind of makes me think they were young. So that gets to the next part. They
more
like start.
important part.
They start leaving the crypt, and well, that's basically like all like backstory stuff.
That's all the
that-
history,
I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure like nothing got like Kyle at least like
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's
something
that's
brought
all
up.
important stuff. But this is like the current event part of it.
yeah. So Ned asks him about John Aaron, and Kyle, what's he say? Let's see if you remember the important part.
I don't. I mean, I don't remember what he said about him.
So
Before you
Well,
go,
like,
Nels,
he
I
was-
picked up on something in my second
Like he
read
was
here that
fine before he died. That's what I was gonna say. And then just one day he was dead, right?
yeah, he was fine a fortnight before, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
like a fever took him, and he died.
It's very sudden.
It
That's all I
burned
really
in his
remember about
gut.
Yep. So then Ned asks about his wife, Lysa, and Robert says that she immediately like fled back to their home away from the kingdom. So he was in the kingdom because he was hand of the king, and his wife was with him and with their son. And as soon as he died, we don't know how long after, but it sounds like it's pretty quick. She's just gone in the middle of the night one time back to where she came from. And Robert's like not happy about it, but he also was like such a
They were
good
happy
friend.
that somebody was going to take the kid, right? Who was going to take the kid?
Well, yeah, not take the kid, but they were gonna
Yeah,
ward
ward
him.
the kid. Yeah.
Which
It's
again
weird
seems
that
like
they
isn't
use
always a
that word.
hostage.
Yeah, they shouldn't have used the word like tutor maybe, or like
Squire, right?
Squire, yeah.
Page?
Not
Isn't
Page.
page like
yeah.
that? Because it
Using
obviously
ward
isn't.
Did not sound good.
It obviously isn't always hostage because Robert and Ned like were wards at the Erie.
To the Erie, and they
Yeah,
were.
and they were fine. They loved John. Well, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
Stockholm syndrome.
but the North is basically a huge kingdom.
Oh yeah, he was going to send him with
Whatever
the
you wanna call
Lannisters, right?
Yeah, so Tywin Lannister had offered to ward him.
There's one line in this chapter that's great too. That Rob says about a Lannister. And
that
I
Robert
won't
says about Lannister.
Yeah,
So-
it's about
Oh,
Cersei.
you don't sleep with one.
You
right?
don't sleep
Yeah.
with one. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a great fucking line.
Yeah, because I think Ned offers. They talk about
He
this.
said, I have more concern for my nephew's welfare than I do for Lannister pride. And then he said, that is because you do not sleep with a Lannister.
Yeah. And I like how like most of after every time Robert says something, it's instead of saying like Robert said, it's like Robert roared while slapping his stomach, and I'm like, yes, it's my
Yeah.
kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like
Again,
Santa.
more and more. More and more. Nelson,
Like
similarities.
like a
uncanny.
creepy Santa.
Everything about him.
Yeah, so we don't know why she fled. The assumption is because they wanted to foster her son with
Yeah.
Tywin Lannister. Seems like it'd be easier to disagree than directly go against the king's orders and just run away.
Yeah.
But it
Can I-
seems like Robert's not doing anything about it because him and John were such good friends that he's not
Right.
gonna like attack his wife and child after they're gone.
And I think this is gonna be the next part, and it's the part that I picked up on during my second read was when they start going to the titles of John,
Uh-huh.
which was Lord of the Erie, Warden of the East, and Hand of the King.
Yeah.
Which I mean, the first time I read that, I'm like, all right, blah 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 blah. But now I actually understand what that means.
All right, so hold on,
And-
let's see.
Yeah,
Kyle.
Yeah,
I
so
wasn't gonna say what they mean, but
So, I mean, I know of the Hand of the King because in the end of one of those the last season episodes, doesn't Tyrion get Hand of the King?
I think it's Tyrion.
I kind of knew like it was the right hand. Like I did know that was kind of important.
yeah, which is a
obviously.
pretty
And then
awesome
you get to it
name
at the end of
for
this,
in a
too.
fictional, like not like Vice King or
So-
Hand of the
Hand
King
of the
is a pretty
King.
fucking sweet
Assistant
name.
King, assistant to the King.
And
Yeah.
there's a line. They have a line in here that's funny, but I think the line they had in the show is actually better when he says like, you know, the line about the hand. Yeah, I have the quote. Robert groaned with good-humored impatience. If I wanted to honor you, I'd let you retire. I'm planning to make you run the kingdom and fight my wars while I eat, drink, and wench myself into an early grave. He slapped his gut and grinned. You know the saying about the king in his hand? Ned knew the saying. What the king dreams, he said, the hand builds. I betted a fish maid once who told me that lowborn have a choicer way to put it. The king eats, they say, and the hand takes the shit. He threw back his head and roared in laughter. The echoes rang through the darkness, and all around him the dead of Winterfell seemed to watch with cold, disapproving eyes. So what the fish maid says in the show is the king shits and the hand wipes, I think. Which I think is even
Oh,
better
that's-
than the king eats and the hand
I don't-
shits.
I don't know. I kind of like the
hand takes
king
the shit.
Takes the
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I don't know.
And wipes it with his hand.
Well, isn't that what taking the shit would be, right? Wiping.
Yeah, I guess that's involved. Part of what
Yeah.
comes with the territory.
Well,
Yeah,
I
so
think
you
it's
got
also important that Rob says that Robin. Did they say his name? Oh
Yeah,
it says
Robin
his
Aaron.
namesake.
or Robert Aaron.
Robert Aaron is only going to be Lord
He's
of the
6.
Erie.
Well, also,
Yeah.
yeah, he's 6,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's sickly, is what they say here.
He's
Yeah.
old bitch boy.
And obviously, and
So
when they
it's
talk
kind of
about
like
this,
Nelson too. Everybody in here is like Nelson.
all the Roberts at least.
Hmm.
Yeah, and when they talk about that, Ned basically says, well, it makes sense that you're not going to make him hand, he's 6, but at least give him
Yeah.
the Warden of the East title
Yeah.
as an honor. And
Yeah.
that Robert refuses.
For his father's sake, if not his own.
Yep. So, do you got no idea what these things, any of those titles mean? Well, Hand of the King, you said. Warden
Yeah,
of the
Lord
East,
of-
Lord of the Vale,
the
or Lord of the Erie, whatever it says.
Lord of the Erie. That I mean, other than I knew from the previous chapter when they were talking about being with him.
Mhm.
But no, I have no idea.
Okay. So, move on.
Suck it. You're not getting any. You're not getting any information from
Well,
us, Paige.
I'm not gonna spoil something. That's the thing is I don't know how much they said in previous chapters, so I don't want to
Suck
spoil
it.
anything. So we'll just jump ahead.
And that's all I have to say about that.
And that's all we're going to talk about today.
I mean, so and then he asked Ned to be the hand of the king.
Yep.
Right. And Ned's like, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, like, it doesn't sound so good. And then, then they talk about Joffrey and Sansa, and he doesn't sound pumped about that either.
Contrary, I think he is pumped about that.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, you would think so because like I'm not saying
From-
you particularly like a person because your daughter's about to be queen. He's
Yeah,
the firstborn son of the king.
but like we said in the beginning, like we don't know anything about Joffrey. We don't know anything about anybody. Like
Yeah,
when
exactly.
when
So
he
he
brings
would be
it up,
pumped
he'd
about
be
it.
like, "Oh, I mean, he says that before. He says, come be my hand.' He says, let's join our houses.' He's like, yeah, fuck it, let's do that. That's awesome. I feel like that's how he took it.
I think he
took-
proposes the joiner houses at the end, and Ned
Yeah.
definitely doesn't feel
Yeah.
good about it.
It's the very end.
I mean, because I have the
Oh,
very
really?
last quote of this chapter.
Yeah,
It
it's
says,
on the last page.
yeah, the very last quote of
Oh,
this
I'm
chapter
looking
is,
wrong.
"For a moment, Eddard Stark was filled with a terrible sense of foreboding. This was his place, here in the north. He looked at the stone figures all around them, breathed deep in the chill silence of the crypt. He could feel the eyes of the dead. They were all listening, he knew, and winter was coming."
Yeah,
Yeah,
like he doesn't
I
sound
fucked
pumped
up.
about any of that.
But you think he would be pumped about at least the marriage.
I think he's pumped about the marriage, but he's just. Really
I forget
worried
his
about
reaction,
being
but I
king.
think Jeff is right. I think he wasn't like no. He was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, he
That's
says-
a pretty good idea, man.
He does ask for a night to think about it and talk it over with Kat, and Robert says
It's
not
about
to
the
keep him
hand.
waiting because he's not
The
a
hand,
patient
yeah.
man.
What?
Yeah, that's about
He's
the
on
hand.
or so.
Well, that's after both.
Yeah.
That's after both. But yeah, Rob just says not to keep him waiting. Basically, like, get back to me in a day.
Either way.
Either
All right.
one.
I think that's all I got for this chapter.
Yeah, that's something bad.
So main things we learn about like the backstory of the realm a little bit. Robert takes over the kingdom 15 years ago. Greyjoy Rebellion 9 years ago. And then we get a little bit more about some of Ned's family members, mainly his sister, how
Yeah.
she relates to Robert. And then we get Jon Arryn died. And his son has fled instead of fostering with Tywin.
And winter is coming.
And yeah, and now
Winter is always
Ned
coming.
has to decide whether he's going to become Hand of the King or not. All right. Well, so we're about to start the spoiler section. We'll say goodbye to Kyle. We'll see
Bye,
you next
Kyle.
week. See you next week, Kyle.
Later, guys.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
And welcome back, guys, to Morning Throners. Kyle just left us, and we are in the spoiler section of Ed 1. Let's get this going, boys.
Let's roll.
All right. So
Do you have a list of like shit we can talk about?
I have two main points to talk about.
I have two main points as well.
All right. What are
Alright.
yours?
combined.
So my first thing is when Ned is first walking with Robert down to the crypts, Robert says something about the kings were all hiding under the snow, and then like he emphasizes snow again. So I think that's obviously referencing Ned or Jon being a future king.
Huh. Okay. That's interesting.
The kings are hiding under the snow, Ned. Snow.
All right, I think that's kind of lame. But go ahead, your other one. I'm just kidding. It's actually very, very deep thought. All right, what's the other one, Glow?
And then the other thing is, I think we'll obviously talk about is rubies on Rhaegar's chestplate and how that could be a glamour.
That's the one I have too.
Okay.
And we'll talk about this a little more in the next chapter.
I forgot actually that Rubies did that until you just brought that up. But from Duncan Egg. I recall.
Cool.
Well, yeah,
two,
we don't know.
Two great points I brought up.
So,
I
the
just
first
have one
we
really
agreed
quick
was-
one before Nelson goes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Did Robert say the others a lot? Capitalized weirdly a bunch?
One time he says, and I meant to actually bring this up with Kyle. He says, "The others take my wife." When Ned says, "Your wife will be waiting," he says, "The others take my wife."
I
So-
think that's just an insult or like a, like
Yeah, for
oh, I'm
sure, but,
pissed.
like, if
the
the whole
others
s-
take them.
If Yeah, so the thing I wanted to pose to Kyle was if Garrett, the guy who gets his head cut off in the first chapter, is scared enough of the others to like flee south without telling the Night's Watch because he doesn't think that he'll be believed. But there's a common saying, the others take my wife. Right? That's like to hell with
people
my
say
wife.
God damn it all the time, and people don't believe in God.
But that's like to hell with my wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like people saying that, and that comes from a belief in hell, right?
Yeah,
I
guess
guess.
so.
I don't know.
So you're saying
That's the only time I noticed him saying that.
Him capitalizing the others things makes you think he believes in them?
Well, not even capitalizing.
Yeah, but it's
he
just a
literally
saying,
says
though.
the others take my wife. Like that has to mean the others, right?
Yeah,
but that
so you're
means
saying
that
maybe it's like a curse word.
Well, I'm just saying that proves to everybody that they at least once existed. Like we don't know that. All at this point, like for this is why I wanted to ask Kyle. At this point in the book, all we know is that there are ice zombies that killed 2 people, made Garrett flee and desert because he thought nobody would believe him. I guess is the main belief, right? Why else would he desert? And then get his head cut off. If nobody's going to believe you, but then also the king is saying the others take my wife. Obviously, people know about these guys. Why did you desert? You know, at this point in the book, if you piece that together, that's what he's talking about with the others. It's kind of weird.
All right. Well, that's what I had to talk about. What about you, Nos?
Well, just the point I want to make to that is we know because we've read it all. And again, if you're here, you're in the spoiler section. We know because we read it all that the others like kind of are a myth or like a fairy tale. Like what's something
Like
you
vampires.
could relate them to?
Vampires.
Like a unicorn in our life.
Even you think so? I think even something like less than that, like Nazis.
What?
In the fact that it's like
let's go with like Genghis Khan.
Something like that. In the fact that it definitely like there's no question that it once existed, but they are definitely gone now.
Yeah, let's not say
Like
Nazis.
dodos. Dodo
Do they
birds.
actually think they ever existed though?
I think so, right? Or else,
People have
why else would
stories
this
of
be
it.
a saying? That's what I'm saying. So is it like vampires or is it like dodo birds?
Yeah, well, do people actually know hell exists and
Or
people say
Nazis
to
or
hell with
Genghis
my
Khan.
wife?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know
don't
which
know.
of the categories this falls into. The other thing that I want to talk about, which is something that Kyle kind of brought up, and another point where I was afraid somebody was going to get spoiled. Why are Brandon and Liana down there? We at this point we don't like they're the only 2 that aren't lords of like Stark lords that are down there.
Yeah. Do we know that? I mean, that's who we
Well,
know.
also, Ned
Yeah,
became Lord, and he was like, alright, I'm going to bury my fucking brother and sister down here.
Also, Jeff and I were obviously trying to tiptoe around something related to Brandon. Brandon, the way that death happens, we don't find out till later when I think it's when Jamie tells Ned, Brandon was strangled. While that happened, his brother, like his dad, had like a noose around his neck, I think. Or no. His dad was being roasted alive. And Brandon had a noose around his neck that he could like barely not reach his dad. So Brandon strangles himself while trying to get his dad free
Down
from the fire.
Yeah.
And the way that Ned thinks about it here is Brandon was strangled and his dad was forced to watch on. But his dad is burning to death while he's watching on. Which is why the thing of like who died first was even in contention. And I guess that's my fault because from the wording in this chapter where he watched his son get strangled, it obviously makes it seem like Brandon died first. But I bet you it's the opposite.
Did you break the spoil?
Yo, you spoiled.
You spoiled, bro.
That's 2.
Spoil.
Here's
That's
the thing.
2.
No way Kyle pieces that together. He just thinks I'm an idiot
No.
because of the situation, because that's such an absurd situation. But also, it's weird that Ned thinks about it like to him. Like that's an inner monologue, right? That's not something Ned says to Rob. That's like an inner monologue. It's like he died at a few days before he had to marry Kat or whatever.
Yeah.
So why are they down there?
So Rob can go like
Jerk off to Liana's statue?
No, not why are like Rob and Ned down there. Why are Brandon and Liana down there in the first place?
I think just because Ned's a lord and he said, I want my sister
I
and
don't-
brother
Okay,
who
but
were
in
murdered.
centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries of Starks.
We don't
being
really know.
around.
Like, I guess there's another graveyard of higher up. Yeah, well, right. Like the Lady Lords and whatnot,
Like
and
this is the first time ever.
second and third children.
that
Do we know that for a fact, though?
At some point in the books they say that. Not in this chapter, which is why we
Yeah.
didn't bring it up in the earlier part. But at some point they
Yeah.
say that only the Lords of Winterfell are buried down there. The only two exceptions are Brandon and Lyanna.
Well, Brandon would have been Lord,
All right,
and then
so
Lyanna
let's
was
just
a
say,
queen
yeah.
of the Seven Kingdoms.
Right, that's what I would go with too.
But you can say that. I'm sure you can say that for plenty of Starks in the past when they died. Like maybe their dad and son died in the same battle, right? Do they bury them both down there, or only the one who was ever officially Lord?
I don't know.
Sure.
And there's no women.
That would be the only reason why that they would get buried down there.
I think there's something up about why they're buried down there.
We'll
you think,
divulge your information.
Lyanna and Bran were.
I don't know. A lot of
banging?
people. What I'm
You've
thinking
already
about.
said that you think that Benjen and Lyanna were banging,
Well, that's a theory. I don't think that.
and that's ridiculous because Benjen was like 7 years old.
Yeah, there's no chance.
Why is he
I
at
don't think
the wall?
Benjamin was that young, but
Why is he at the wall? Why does Jon look like he has more North than the two boys who have a father who's the Lord Stark? Maybe if he has double Stark blood. He was incest Stark baby. That's why he looks like he has more than North in him. That's why the conversation with Jon
why
and Benjen
couldn't
in the
Ned
next,
be-
in the
why
next
couldn't-
chapter where
That's why Benjen says
calls him
son.
son. Yeah, good call. Yeah, I mean,
Why couldn't Ned?
I don't
just be the
believe it. I'm just
father?
saying there's things that point to it. Just like there's things that point to him being Rhaegar and Lyanna's son.
All right, moving on.
Also, I just want you guys to be
I don't
very
know
careful.
why they're down there. That's what I would say.
Be very careful. At this point, in Kyle's head, Lyanna died of a fever. No connection to Rhaegar, right? We have no idea.
No, because you said that.
Well, yeah,
you-
Robert blames Rhaegar.
Rhaegar. But
that's
you
in
also
the
said
chapter.
there's a quote about blood being there. You don't bleed from a fever.
Yeah, but
I don't know if there's. Did they bring
Cowden,
up one?
Cowden, I don't know if. Yeah, I think.
I
they
think Kyle picked up on it. He probably didn't. Maybe
no,
not.
he said she dies of a fever, right? And I was like, yeah. And I read the thing where it says,
Right, but then in the quote that you read, it said smelled like blood and flowers. I think was the quote. Like,
you could hear
why
her
would there
still.
be?
You could hear
Cock
her still
and
at times.
balls.
Promise me she had.
Yeah, keep going.
He could hear her still at times. Promise me she had cried in a room that smelled of blood and roses. Promise me, Ned.
Ooh,
Why would
there's
there be
That
blood.
could be
blood.
other people's blood. People who are. She's a fucking highborn lady.
Nah, that's a stupid thought. If he didn't pick up on that, I don't know about him.
Well, the thing is, the blood is from childbirth. It's not from getting stabbed by Rhaegar.
Right,
doesn't
but
know
he
this
should
part yet,
should
though.
know more that it's from like a stab, like Rhaegar stabbed her. Then that's what he should be thinking. Not that she had a cold and died.
I'll give you a fever.
It says the fever had taken her strength and her voice.
Yeah, but you also get a fever if you have an open wound that's not being treated. You get a fever.
I don't know.
It's said all the time in this book. Oh, you got the fever. Like when people have a wound.
So
Don't be a fool.
we didn't.
Oh, got
again-
diarrhea. I think
again,
I'll die now.
I think we handled this when we talked with Kyle, and like we should continue doing this. Like, if he doesn't bring up, like when I read a quote or something that has to do with something important, like the promise me Ned thing, and he doesn't raise any weird questions, easy for us. Just don't talk about it. Save it
Yeah.
for this. It's easy. We just got to try and start saving stuff for this section, right? We can talk about it then, and just let him just think that like we don't think anything of it.
So
The other
what did he
thing-
promise her?
We don't know.
At this point, we don't
That's
know.
the greatest part is that we truly don't know. Like it could be
So in my notes, I created a special page called Tower
Promise
of
Me?
Joy / Promise Me, and anytime we get a quote about it, I'm gonna compile them all here. So right now, the quote that I read just now is the only one we have from here, but
I
I'll
like that.
compile them. I'll have them all by the end. I have a few other ones. I have the Battle of the Trident, stuff like that.
Cool.
Sack of King's Landing, Doom of Valyria. Just major events, the Long Night, the Dawn Age, stuff like that.
yeah.
Anything else this chapter? Anything with John Aaron towards the end?
Mm,
Who did he
Just-
ever name Warden of the East?
So what did you said you had something
Tywin.
for this, Jeff. You said when we were talking about this, you had something for it.
No, I think I said it like actually during the thing. Like, why would he not name him Warden of the East too? Like, if it's just a title thing.
So
You
I
know?
think we find out
he's
later.
naming it to Tywin. I
I'm
think.
pretty sure we find out later that so
Tywin
Tywin. So listen, I think we find out later that Tywin is the warden of the West, and I
West.
think part of the deal of Tywin fostering Robert is somehow Jaime becomes warden of the East.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. I think it's I thought that's what Jeff was bringing up because I think we
Oh.
find that out later.
No, I don't remember that.
Is that somehow that's part of the deal? Is the Lannisters are trying to get more control of the kingdom, and Ned. I think that happens later in this book while Ned is like serving Robert, and he's like,
Gotcha.
I see what the Lannisters are doing now. They're trying to like get more like if again this is the whole thing in a if you have the bigger army, you're in charge. That's what it boils down to. If the Lannisters control East and West,
the balls to use your army
to take it, yeah. If Lannisters control East and West, have the most people, and then decide to take the throne, it's theirs.
What section, I guess you would say, district, region,
Kingdom.
where the Stormlands are they in the capital or
The Stormlands are like south of the capital.
so that's not the Reach or the capital.
Stormlands are one of the kingdoms. Yeah. There's actually 9 kingdoms.
But I think it would fall
okay.
into the Reach. I think they would be part of the South.
No, they're their own.
It's their own thing.
Yeah, they are one of the
they're
seven.
Yeah,
one
but
of
there's
the
only
seven.
4. There's Warden of the East, South, North, and
Yeah,
West.
that's not what I was asking. I was asking like, was Storm's End like the major?
Yeah,
Like
Storm's
like
End was the
Highgarden is to
Winterfell.
the Reach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Highgarden, Castle Rock, Winterfell, Storm's End,
Eerie.
Vale,
Right.
Sunspear. Yeah, River Run. /
Why they call it
Harrenhal.
7 kingdoms if there's 9?
I don't know. So
Mhm.
when Aegon the Conqueror took over,
You can only count to 7.
the Iron Islands were part of the Riverlands, and
was
because
the north?
yeah, but because there wasn't a capital, there wasn't a Crownlands. The Crownlands is the area around the capital. It's like where
That's
House
like DC.
It's like where House Derry, yeah, kind of like DC. It's where House Derry is. So there's actually houses and lords that live there that aren't part of other kingdoms. But when they became a kingdom, the Riverlands split into the Iron Islands and the Riverlands, and they added a Crownlands. So you went from 7 to getting 8 when you split the one apart, and then you get 9 from the last one. So currently there's Dorne, the Reach, the Stormlands, the Iron Islands, the Riverlands. What did I say?
The Erie,
The Erie, the North, and what did I say? The one around the
Crownlands.
Crownlands. Is that 9? Crownlands,
know.
Stormlands, Reach, Westerlands, Erie, Dorne. Fuck, I don't have the order.
I don't.
There's
Yeah,
fucking
you have to
9.
write it down.
There's 9
There's
between all.
there's
of them.
fucking 9.
Yeah, but yeah, only 4 wardens. Warden of the North, East, South. I don't know. I guess Reach is the one. I guess you're right. Reach is the one in the South. The only mention I remember of it off the top of my head is in the show when Jaime's trying to convince Sam's dad to join them. He offers him the position of Warden of the South. He's like, well, Cersei will be looking for a new Warden of the South after this is all over. So maybe that's the Reach because Tully, they're the fucking
Yes.
flower people.
Yes.
Tyrells.
Tyrells.
Tyrells. Because the Tyrells are all gone. Maybe that's why that position's open. But yeah, we could go into a lot of stuff here, right? The Trident, but we're not getting much. There's nothing really to go off of. The whole Rubies thing. We can get more into it in the next chapter with John. But there's a part where a singer, where this quote's from the next chapter, but it kind of, the main theory, Glow, do you know the main theory with if Rhaegar's wearing a glamour and that person who dies isn't Rhaegar, where is Rhaegar now?
Yeah, he's supposed to be King Beyond the Wall. I can't think of his name.
Mance Rayder. There's a
Mance
story,
Rayder,
and something we're definitely going to talk about in the next chapter. Mance tells Jon he was at this feast in the next chapter, the Jon chapter.
I wish that they in the next chapter they went in more depth about the singer. Like he just said, like, oh, the singer was like a burly guy, or
So I'll read the
just
quote
gave
right
us-
now because it kind of relates to the Rhaegar thing. A singer was
Well, should
playing the high
we-
harp and reciting a ballad, but down at the end of this hall, his voice was scarcely heard above the roar of the fire. That's literally it, right?
yeah,
A lot of people who are on the Rhaegar is Mance thing, like who subscribe to that theory, use this quote as one of them. Because what is Rhaegar? People always say Rhaegar likes to do high
Sing and
harping and
play.
singing more than he likes, and his instrument of choice, I think, is a high harp, more than he likes battle. And literally, this line says, a singer was playing a high harp and reciting a ballad. Again, I don't think it's much like evidence, but we'll keep an eye out for it as we go along, and we'll talk about it more in the John chapter. But yeah, we'll bring it up now, and maybe as we go along and other theories come up about who potentially Rhaegar could still be if he's alive. I subscribe to a lot of crazy theories. This isn't one that I'm behind, that Rhaegar's still alive. I think dead is dead, but it does seem odd that he goes into so much detail about the rubies. What do you guys think about it?
I actually kind of subscribe that he is alive, but I don't think he's Mance Rayder. But I don't know who else he could be in the books.
It's kind of one of those things where I don't want too much glamour to take over, like Mance Rayder's personality. Like, we know it's already gonna do it. He's gonna do it one time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, is Mance Rayder like just like a fake person that's just being glamored around, and it's like not even a real thing anymore?
So that's weird. I never thought about the fact that the person that Rhaegar would be pretending to glamour, then again is the only other person who we really see get glamored. Yeah. Right? Is Mance the only person that gets glamored in these? Again,
that
I guess we'll have to keep.
I think.
I guess we'll have to keep an eye out for any time rubies show up.
Rattleshirt.
Well, Rattleshirt is the one who, he gets glamored as Mance, and then Mance. But that's
glamored as Rattleshirt.
I guess that's what you would be assuming is happening with Mance, right? Is the person who dies on the Trident isn't actually Rhaegar who was wearing the rubies, and it makes you think. The one thing I guess we get out of this section is we hear when Robert killed him. There, at least we don't get an explicit anybody examine the body, but you'd have to assume that this body would be treated with respect, and people would look at it without armor on after this, right? And then the glamour would be broken. Or am I crazy?
I mean, Robert's people probably had the body and probably.
Well, that's what they said, right?
You know what they do.
That's what Ned says. Is he says like everybody just rushed the stream to try and get the.
That's all I'm saying. So it might be similar to what happened to Robb. I mean, they could have just defiled the body and not even looked at it. Just cut off his head and threw it in a fire.
Yeah, so when Ned had finally come to the scene, Rhaegar lay dead in the stream while men on both armies scrabbled in the swirling waters for his rubies knocked free of his armor.
Doesn't seem like Robert's the kind that would care what would happen to Rhaegar's body.
Yeah, I guess you don't really take care of the enemy body. I
Only
don't know.
One guy did.
We'll have to keep an eye out. I assume that the fact that this is a theory and that people who dig deep into these books think that it's possible means that we don't really get a resolution on what happens to his body. Because if he's ever seen without armor on, then the glamour's fucked, which is, again, evidence against it, because why would you have a plan that if the guy dies... Like, the whole plan is expecting the guy to die, right? There's no reason to glamour somebody to pretend to be Rhaegar. And get the real Rhaegar away if you expect that guy to win the fight. Right? You would do that.
Did Rattleshirt or Mance have rubies on during that whole glamoring process?
Yeah, Mance has rubies on it because when Mance
on his wrist. Does Rattleshirt have?
So I don't know if it's mentioned, but Rattleshirt is only glamored as Mance for a short time while he's going to the fire, and he's shackled when that's happening. So you can assume that there's rubies on those too, but I don't know if it's ever mentioned.
I feel you.
But I guess I don't know. I guess you can say the same thing about Rattleshirt. Is that people saw his body afterwards? But again, I guess that body would be burned. But also, John shot it, right? Doesn't John shoot it?
But it's still on fire.
Yeah, and I guess nobody.
They probably let it burn out.
Yeah, nobody's rushing in there to dry the.
No.
Yeah, throwing water on it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Put it out! Put it out! He's dead! Put it out!
Again, this is one of the things I haven't looked too much into, but I guess we can keep an eye out for it as we go. So Rhaegar is what? How old? He would be older than Viserys, who's 21. So at this point, he's older than 21. He's probably about age with Robert, 20. Right? He's got to be at age with Robert, so 31, at least 31.
Well, no, so Lyanna was 16. It's 14 years later, so he's about 30. He'd probably be about 32, 33.
Right, assuming he's the same age as Lyanna when she dies.
He's probably a little bit older.
But Viserys was 6 years old, right, when the war happened, so you got to think he's out there... What's that?
But Rhaegar's older than him.
Right, I'm saying, like, Rhaegar's out there fighting a war. You know, I guess they could be like a 16-year-old kid fighting a war, but I
think he's around 18 at the time.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm going to
20.
say 16 to 18.
So then
32 now?
Yeah.
That's like Mance. I mean, that's Mance Rayder age. That's right. Yeah. That's what I'm guessing. But so we'll keep an eye out for any other like purple-eyed
references.
32-year-olds throughout the book.
Make a page.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so the other thing is Tywin Lannister trying to get control of Robb and Aaron probably has something to do with him trying to become more in the East. Like kind of do what Littlefinger does later, is take control of the East just so he has the West. Even if he can't get the wardenship, to at least have some say in what those lords do, because if he has their freaking their High Lord.
Right.
Besides that, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thanks for listening. Check us out next time. Give us a like, thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. We are now on Switcher, TuneIn,
Hype about Switcher.
TuneIn, and Google, whatever Google's podcast thing is.
When are we popping on iCloud or iTunes?
I'm gonna say when we get to around like 15 episodes, we'll switch over to iTunes.
All right. I know that's what the people are really excited
That's what the
about.
people want. And when we go to iTunes, iTunes automatically connects to a bunch of different spots.
There we go.
It connect once we're on iTunes, we'll also be on Overcast, Podcast, Castro, Castbox, and Podchaser.
How about it?
We're all over the place. We'll be famous.
Good
in no
morning,
time.
Throners.
But if
All
you're
right, see
listening
ya,
already, you're day one. We love you.
We
Thanks
love
for
you
following.
more.
Tune in
We'll
next
always
time.
love you more. See ya.
Good night, Westeros, and watch us on our next episode.